I was a middle manager at a tech company in Seattle for 8 years. My brother-in-law Jackson and I were close, especially after I helped him land a job in my department. We had weekend barbecues, fantasy football leagues, and genuine friendship. Everything was perfect until our CEO announced a company restructuring. I never imagined I would have to choose between my career and my family. Before I tell you how my career choice tore my family apart, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to choose between work and family. Working at TechVision Solutions had been the cornerstone of my adult life. I joined right after completing my MBA, starting in the marketing analytics department, where my knack for interpreting data quickly caught the attention of senior management. Within 3 years, I was promoted to team leader, and by year 5, I became the department manager overseeing 15 talented professionals. The company culture had always emphasized innovation and work-life balance, which made it easy to recommend TechVision when my brother-in-law Jackson was struggling to find work. Jackson was married to my wife, Amanda's younger sister, Brooke. He had graduated with a computer science degree but had trouble landing a stable job for almost a year. At family gatherings, I could see the stress wearing on him as he described interview after interview that led nowhere. The market is saturated with recent grads, he told me one evening as we stood in my backyard, the Seattle rain gently tapping on the patio cover. Everyone wants 5 years of experience for entry-level positions. I saw an opportunity when a junior analyst position opened in my department. Jackson had the technical skills we needed, and I knew he was reliable and eager to prove himself. I put in a good word with HR and helped him prepare for the interview. 2 weeks later, he was hired, and the look of gratitude in his eyes when he called to thank me is something I will never forget. "Cal, I swear I will not let you down," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "This means everything to us. Brooke and I can finally start thinking about buying a house, starting a family." "I owe you big time. Just do good work," I replied. "That is all the thanks I need." And he did exactly that. Jackson was punctual, detail-oriented, and quick to learn our systems. During his first year, he exceeded expectations on every performance review. We maintained professional boundaries at work, but having family in the same company made everyday tasks more enjoyable. We carpooled twice a week, talking about everything from company gossip to sports predictions. Our families grew even closer, with Sunday dinners becoming a sacred tradition. The company thrived under the leadership of our longtime CEO, Richard Hartman. However, everything changed when he announced his retirement, and the board appointed Harold Watts as his successor. Harold came from a competitor with a reputation for aggressive cost-cutting and prioritizing shareholder value above employee well-being. The changes were subtle at first. The annual company picnic was canceled. The education reimbursement program was scaled back. Free coffee in the break rooms was replaced with vending machines. Small things that collectively signaled a shift in company values. 6 months into Harold's tenure, I received a meeting invitation from Sophia Reynolds, our HR director. Sophia had been with the company for over a decade, and I respected her straightforward approach. "I wanted to give you a heads up," she said after closing her office door. "Harold is planning major changes, and your department will be affected." Her expression was grave as she continued. "The board has approved his restructuring plan, which includes significant workforce reductions." "How significant?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer would be painful. 15% across all departments. Some departments may see higher numbers depending on how essential they are deemed to the core business. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "When will this happen?" "The formal announcement comes next week. Department heads will be asked to submit their reduction recommendations within 30 days. She leaned forward. "Calhoun, I know you have family in your department. This will not be easy for anyone." The following Monday, I was called into a meeting with my supervisor, Derek Martinez. Derek had always been politically savvy, quick to align himself with whoever held power. "Calhoun, Harold sees potential in you," Derek said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "How you handle this restructuring will be noticed. He appreciates managers who can make tough decisions for the good of the company." "I understand," I replied, trying to mask my unease. "I will review my team's performance metrics objectively." Derek slid a folder across the table. "Here is the preliminary analysis from finance. They have identified potential redundancies based purely on numbers. Consider it a starting point. That night I waited until Amanda was asleep before opening the folder. My heart sank as I flipped through the pages and saw Jackson's name highlighted as a potential cut. According to the metrics, he was the third lowest performer in my department based on the new evaluation system Harold had implemented. The system heavily weighted seniority in revenue generation areas where Jackson, being relatively new, naturally scored lower despite his excellent work quality. The next morning, Derek cornered me by the coffee machine. "Harold asked me specifically about your department," he said quietly. "He mentioned your brother-in-law by name." My blood ran cold. "What about him?" "He wanted to know if family connections might cloud your judgment." Derek's tone was casual, but the implication was clear. I assured him you were a professional who understands that business is business. Over the next 2 weeks, I tried to warn Jackson, indirectly encouraging him to document his achievements and make his contributions more visible. But I could not explicitly tell him about the impending cuts without violating confidentiality protocols that could cost me my own job. "Is everything okay?" Cal Jackson asked after noticing my changed demeanor. "You seem stressed lately." "Just pressure from above," I answered vaguely. "Make sure all your reports are updated. Visibility is important right now." He nodded, taking my advice seriously, but it was too late. The metrics had already been compiled, and the narrative had been set. I spent nights reviewing alternative scenarios, trying to find a way to protect Jackson without putting my own career at risk. Could I cut someone else? Could I argue for a smaller reduction in my department? Every option seemed to lead to a dead end. The day before the final decisions were due, Harold called me into his office. His corner suite offered panoramic views of the Seattle skyline, a stark contrast to the windowless conference rooms where most of us worked. "Calhoun, I will be direct," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Your department needs fresh blood. The people you hire should reflect the direction the company is heading, not where it has been. My team has consistently met or exceeded targets I defended, and yet we need to cut costs." Harold picked up a golf ball from his desk, rolling it between his fingers. "I understand. Making personnel decisions involving family can be uncomfortable, but leadership requires making unpopular choices." I realized then that this was not just about numbers. Jackson was being targeted specifically. Harold continued, "The VP of Operations position will be opening up next quarter. Derek speaks highly of your potential for advancement." His implication was clear: my career trajectory depended on how I handled this situation. "I understand," I said, feeling trapped. "I will have my final recommendations tomorrow." That night was the longest of my life. Amanda noticed my distraction during dinner. "You have barely touched your food," she said, concern in her eyes. "What is wrong?" I considered telling her everything, but the weight of professional confidentiality and the uncertainty of how she would react stopped me. "Just a tough decision at work," I replied, unable to meet her gaze. "The board meeting where I had to present my department cuts remains the most difficult professional moment of my life." I sat at the long mahogany table, surrounded by executives in expensive suits, all waiting for me to justify terminating people who depended on their paychecks for mortgages, childcare, and health insurance. Harold sat at the head of the table, watching me with calculating eyes. In accordance with the restructuring directive, I began, my mouth dry. "I have identified 4 positions in my department that can be eliminated." I clicked through my presentation slides, explaining how each cut aligned with company goals, using the corporate language that disguised the human impact of our decisions. When Jackson's name appeared on the screen, I forced myself to continue in a steady voice, citing the objective metrics that placed him in the reduction category. I felt like a traitor with every word. After the meeting, Harold approached me with a satisfied smile. "Well handled, Calhoun. Clinical and professional, exactly what we need in senior leadership." He clasped my shoulder. "As discussed, there will be a place for you when the operations VP position opens. The formal announcement will come next month, but consider this your unofficial notice." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The promotion would mean a salary increase of nearly 50%, stock options, and a level of security my family had never known. Yet it felt hollow knowing what it would cost. HR scheduled the termination meetings for the following day. I requested that Jackson be my last appointment, hoping somehow that would make it easier. It did not. When he entered my office, his face showed confusion rather than suspicion. We had always had a casual relationship at work, and formal meetings between us were rare. "Have a seat, Jackson," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. I had rehearsed my words countless times, but they still felt wrong. "What is up, new project?" he asked, smiling. I placed the termination packet on the desk. "I regret to inform you that your position has been eliminated as part of the company restructuring effort." His smile faded, replaced by disbelief. "What is this, some kind of joke? I wish it were." The decision was based on department metrics and company direction. The corporate jargon felt like acid on my tongue. "But my reviews have been good. You just told me last month that I was doing great work." Confusion gave way to hurt, then anger, as realization dawned. "You knew this was coming. That is why you have been acting strange." "I was not at liberty to discuss confidential company matters," I replied weakly. Jackson stood up his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. "Liberty. This is my livelihood, Calhoun. This is my family. Did you even fight for me? Did you say one word in my defense?" I could not meet his eyes. "The decision was based on objective criteria." "Objective. We are family. I trusted you." His voice broke. "Does Amanda know you did this?" "This is a business decision, not a personal one," I replied, falling back on the script HR had provided. "Everything is personal when it affects the people you love." He shook his head in disgust. "You know, we just put a deposit down on a house. Brooke is 8 weeks pregnant. We signed the papers because I believed my job was secure. I believed in you." Each word felt like a physical blow. I pushed the termination packet toward him. "There is a severance package. 3 months' salary and benefits continuation for 60 days. He did not touch the papers. "Keep your blood money. I will find my own way." After he left, I sat alone in my office for over an hour, unable to move. When I finally drove home that evening, I could not bring myself to tell Amanda what I had done. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially in families. The news broke during our weekly Sunday dinner, 2 days later. We were at Amanda's parents' house, the tension at the table palpable, due to Jackson and Brooke's absence. "Where are the kids?" Amanda's mother asked, as she served pot roast. "They never miss Sunday dinner." Amanda's father cleared his throat. Brooke called. "Apparently Jackson lost his job." He looked directly at me. "At your company." All eyes turned to me. Amanda's expression shifted from surprise to hurt. "Did you know about this?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Jackson and Brooke stood on the porch, clearly there only out of obligation. The dinner that followed was excruciating, with conversation strained and minimal. As we helped clear the table, Jackson pulled me aside in the kitchen. "We have to back out of the house purchase. The bank will not approve the mortgage without stable employment. We lose our deposit. I can help you financially until you find something else," I offered. His laugh was bitter. "I do not want your charity, Calhoun. I wanted my brother to have my back when it counted." The situation deteriorated further when Brooke mentioned their pregnancy and the complications she was experiencing. "The doctor wants additional monitoring, which means extra appointments not fully covered by insurance. Without Jackson's benefits." She left the sentence unfinished, but the implication was clear. Amanda was unusually quiet during the drive home. When we arrived, she finally spoke. "You fired your own family and did not even tell me." "It was a company decision. My hands were tied," I explained. "Did you fight for him? Did you look for alternatives?" I thought about the VP position, the promises Harold had made. It was complicated. "That is not an answer." She grabbed her pillow from our bed. "I am sleeping in the guest room tonight. I need space to process this." The next morning, I found a note from her on the kitchen counter. "Staying with my parents for a few days. Need to support Brooke." My promotion was announced the following week. The congratulatory emails and handshakes from colleagues felt meaningless against the backdrop of my disintegrating personal life. Amanda returned home, but remained distant, our conversations limited to practical matters. Jackson stopped responding to my calls and texts entirely. Family gatherings became events to endure rather than enjoy, with sides clearly drawn. During our annual Christmas celebration, the tension finally erupted. Jackson had been drinking steadily throughout dinner and stood to make a toast. To family, he said, his voice loaded with sarcasm. And to learning who you can really count on when times get tough. Amanda's father, who had always treated me like a son, could not meet my eyes. Some choices define a man's character, he said quietly. It was business. I insisted, feeling the fragile peace shatter. I did not have a choice. We always have choices, Jackson countered. You chose your career over family. At least be honest about it. Later that night, as Amanda and I drove home in silence, I realized the promotion had cost me everything that truly mattered. The increased salary meant nothing when there was no joy in our home. The prestigious title was empty when the people I loved looked at me with disappointment. 3 months into my new role, I discovered something that would change everything. My new position as Operations VP gave me access to financial documents I had never seen before. At first, I was focused on learning the role and trying to repair my home life. Amanda and I were speaking again, but the easy affection we once shared was replaced by polite formality. She had taken to spending weekends with Brooke, helping her prepare for the baby while Jackson searched for work. One evening, while reviewing departmental budgets, I noticed inconsistencies in the numbers. Several projects showed significantly higher expenses than seemed reasonable. Normally, I would have attributed this to the standard padding managers often build into their budgets, but the pattern was too systematic. I began digging deeper, staying late at the office, and creating spreadsheets to track the discrepancies. The irregularities all pointed to departments under Derek's direct control, with approvals from Harold himself. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were being allocated to vendor contracts that, upon closer inspection, seemed to exist only on paper. My suspicion grew when I discovered a recurring payment to a company called Axiom Consulting. The company had a website, but no physical address I could verify. The services described in their invoices were vague, yet they were receiving substantial monthly payments. I mentioned the discrepancy casually to Sophia from HR during lunch. Have you ever worked with Axiom Consulting? I am reviewing their contracts and could use some background. Her expression changed subtly. That account is handled directly by Harold. Even the finance team has been instructed to process those invoices without the usual verification. She lowered her voice. Between us, several people who asked questions about those payments are no longer with the company. That night I could not sleep. The implications were staggering. Was I witnessing financial fraud? And if so, how deep did it go? I created a secure folder on my personal laptop and began documenting everything, taking screenshots, and downloading reports that showed the pattern. As I followed the money trail, a disturbing picture emerged. Harold and Derek had created a sophisticated embezzlement scheme, siphoning company funds through fake vendors and inflated contracts. But the most shocking discovery came when I accessed archived emails from a server scheduled for decommissioning. In an exchange between Harold and Derek from 6 months earlier, they discussed the upcoming layoffs. We need to eliminate potential threats, Harold had written. The Jackson situation concerns me. He accessed the Axiom server during that network maintenance. Claims it was accidental, but we cannot risk it. Derek's response. His brother-in-law is ambitious. Offer him advancement in exchange for handling the problem, and we solve both issues at once. I felt physically ill. Jackson had not been targeted because of performance metrics. He had been eliminated because he might have stumbled upon their scheme. And I had been the unwitting executioner, betraying my family for a promotion that was never about my talents or potential. The next day, I requested a private meeting with Harold. His spacious office now seemed like the lair of a predator rather than the domain of a business leader. What can I do for you, Calhoun? He asked, the picture of corporate congeniality. I have been reviewing our operational expenses. I began carefully and found some concerning patterns in our vendor relationships, particularly with Axiom Consulting. Harold's smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened. Those contracts are confidential and handled at my discretion. There is no need for you to concern yourself with them. As Operations VP, vendor management falls under my responsibility, I countered. Your responsibility is what I say it is. All pretense of friendliness vanished. You have been doing well here, Calhoun. It would be a shame to derail your career over a misunderstanding of your role. Is that a threat? Harold leaned forward. Let me be clear. You are where you are because you demonstrated you could make difficult decisions for the good of the company. Some people cannot separate business from personal matters. You proved you could. Do not make me question that assessment now. By difficult decisions, you mean firing my brother-in-law because he accidentally saw something he should not have. A flicker of surprise crossed Harold's face before his mask of control returned. I do not know what you think you have discovered, but I suggest you focus on your actual job. Remember, the same influence that can elevate a career can also destroy it. Your reputation in this industry depends entirely on the references I provide. I left the meeting with my heart pounding, but my resolve strengthened. Harold had all but confirmed my suspicions, and his threats made clear the kind of man I was dealing with. That night, I called a lawyer friend for advice, being careful to speak hypothetically. He recommended documenting everything and contacting the FBI rather than local police, given the scale of the potential fraud. For the next 2 weeks, I played the role of the obedient executive while secretly gathering more evidence. I recorded conversations where Harold made veiled threats, documented every suspicious transaction, and compiled a comprehensive case file. During this time, Amanda announced she was going to stay with her parents for a while. "I do not recognize you anymore, Calhoun," she said as she packed her suitcase. "The man I married would never have sacrificed family for a corner office." Her words cut deep because they were true. I had lost sight of what mattered, seduced by promises of advancement and financial security. But as I watched her leave, I knew what I had to do, regardless of the cost to my career or reputation. I submitted all my evidence to the FBI through their online portal and followed up with a meeting at their Seattle field office. The agent who interviewed me was professionally skeptical but thorough in reviewing my documentation. "If what you are alleging is true, this is a significant case of corporate fraud," she said. "You understand that coming forward may impact your own position." "I do," I replied. "But I have already lost what matters most. At least this way I can try to make things right." 3 weeks later, federal agents arrived at TechVision during a board meeting. The stunned expressions on Harold's and Derek's faces as they were let out in handcuffs were small consolation for the damage they had caused to so many lives, including my own. In the aftermath, I was placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation into whether I had any involvement in the scheme. The board appointed an interim CEO who immediately began damage control. The company stock plummeted, and rumors of layoffs swirled once again. With nothing left to lose, I reached out to Jackson. My call still went straight to voicemail, but I left a message asking to meet. To my surprise, he agreed to coffee at a neutral location. He looked tired when he arrived, the strain of unemployment and impending fatherhood evident in the shadows under his eyes. We sat in awkward silence until our drinks arrived. "Thank you for meeting me," I finally said. "I discovered something you need to know." I explained everything: the fraud, the real reason for his termination, my unwitting role in their plan. His expression shifted from skepticism to shock as I showed him copies of the emails I had discovered. "They targeted you because you might have seen something during that server maintenance," I concluded. "And they used me to do it because they knew firing family would prove my loyalty." Jackson was quiet for a long moment. That day, I did see some strange files. Financial records that did not match our public statements. I mentioned it to IT, thinking it was a data error. He shook his head. "I never imagined it would cost me my job. I should have questioned it," I admitted. "I should have fought harder for you. Instead, I chose my career, and I have regretted it every day since." "What happens now?" he asked. "The new leadership has seen the evidence. They want to make things right, including offering reinstatement to employees who were wrongfully terminated." I slid a business card across the table. "The interim CEO wants to meet with you. They are offering your position back with back pay and a promotion." For the first time, I saw a glimmer of the old warmth in his eyes. "And what about you? I do not know. My future at the company is uncertain. But whatever happens, I needed to fix what I helped break." Rebuilding trust with Amanda and her family was a slower process. When the story of the fraud broke in the local business press, with my role as whistleblower mentioned prominently, it opened the door for conversations we had been avoiding. I showed Amanda the same evidence I had shown Jackson. "Why did you not tell me what was really happening?" she asked. "At first I did not know. Then I was afraid. Of losing the promotion, of disappointing you, of admitting I had made a terrible mistake." I took her hand relieved when she did not pull away. "I lost sight of what matters." No job is worth losing you or betraying family. The company ultimately cleared me of any wrongdoing and offered me a position in a different department. Instead, I negotiated a reasonable severance package and declined their offer to stay. Some environments become too toxic to repair, and I needed a fresh start. Jackson returned to TechVision with his new position and the respect of colleagues who had learned the truth about the layoffs. Our relationship remained fragile, but we were talking again, finding our way back to the friendship we once shared. The most healing moment came when Brooke gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Standing in the hospital room watching Jackson hold his daughter for the first time, I felt the walls between us begin to crumble. "Would you like to hold your niece?" he asked, extending the tiny bundle toward me. As I cradled her, Amanda slipped her arm around my waist, leaning her head against my shoulder. It was the first spontaneous affection she had shown in months. "I have been interviewing with a smaller tech firm," I told them. "They value work-life balance and ethical leadership. Less money, but I would be home for dinner every night." "Sounds like the right move," Jackson said. Some things you learn the hard way. Looking back now, I realize that what happened was both the worst and best chapter of my life. The worst because I betrayed someone who trusted me, nearly destroying my family in the process. The best because it forced me to confront who I had become and who I wanted to be. My new job does not come with a corner office or stock options, but it gives me something far more valuable: integrity and time with the people I love. Amanda and I have rebuilt our marriage stronger now because we have weathered a storm that could have broken us. Jackson and I may never recapture the easy brotherhood we once had, but we have found a new respect for each other through forgiveness and honesty. Harold and Derek were convicted of fraud and embezzlement. The money they stole, almost $4 million, has been partially recovered, but the real cost of their crimes cannot be measured in dollars. It is calculated in the stress they caused families, the trust they broke, and the relationships they damaged. I learned that career advancement means nothing if you compromise your values to achieve it. True success is not measured by titles or salary, but by the strength of your relationships and your ability to face yourself in the mirror each morning. When faced with difficult choices, I now ask myself, will this decision honor the trust of the people who love me? It is a simple question, but it has become my North Star. What would you have done in my position? Would you have made the same choices I did? Have you ever had to choose between career advancement and your personal values? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons. Your support helps this channel grow, and I appreciate each one of you who takes the time to listen to these stories. Remember, in the end, it is not our successes or failures that define us, but how we respond to them and who we become in the process. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.